Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. My name is Jamie Steelman, and on May 31st, 2016, I lost my son, Ryan Steelman, and we're here just to give back a little bit, talk about that loss, talk about grief, talk about family, talk about community, and some of the journey that we've experienced over the last 8 years, and just try to be a resource for people out there that would like to hear about it, have somebody to talk to, anything like that. So we really appreciate you joining us. Today, I have my son, Jordan Stillman, with me. So thank you, Jordan, for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. So we're just going to kind of jump right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself and, kind of who you are and your relationship with Ryan.
Again, my name's Jordan. 28 years old. I live in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I'm a busybody. Work a lot, play a lot. Anything I can do to stay busy is kind of what I do. Ryan was my oldest brother. We're just about a year and a half apart. And we were very, very close growing up.
Yeah, definitely. I can attest to that. Extremely close. So kind of just starting out with, tell us a little bit about your version of the story and, how we went through losing Ryan kind of, a little before that night and then having to find out, the news that he had passed.
Got it. It was maybe 6, 7 p.m. I was home from work, cooking dinner, going about my normal business. And I got a phone call, and I don't honestly remember who I got the call from. But I got a call saying that Ryan had been in a motorcycle accident, and we didn't really have any information. But he was in a motorcycle accident, and everyone needs to come to the hospital as soon as possible. So we drove to the hospital. I got there around the same time as everyone else. And we just waited to get news. Where is he? Where was he? What happened? Just waited to get the news.
Yeah. So I talk a lot about people, as we've went through kind of some of this stuff. Looking back, I didn't realize, I was so focused on what was going on with Ryan. Now that we've had to deal with that and move forward, I have some memories that, I didn't realize how many people got to the hospital so fast. And I tell people, that teaches you a lot about family and friends. I think at the time, I probably felt like I was the only one there, but looking back, there was probably 15 or 20 people at that hospital, all within half an hour to an hour of wherever they were driving from. And those are things to remember, that those people are around to help you. And then also I've talked a lot about, not being able to get answers and not knowing, but having a friend that was able to go and get us some answers, as horrible as those answers were, to at least not sit at the hospital just wondering what was going on. So I think out of some of the grief over time, you remember some people that were really there for you and some things that you might not have noticed beforehand.
Yeah. I would. I'd say 15 to 20 was probably closer to 30.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people there. Filled a private waiting room, and filled both sides of the hallway going all the way down to the next room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really learned a lot that night and in the following weeks about some friends and family that I definitely probably called friends and family, but I found out, who are the real ones, I guess you would say, that are there no matter what. Not when they need something from you, but if you need something, they're going to show up. And I think it's a huge life lesson for me after I got back the initial, shock, and looking back a couple of years later about how great it was to have some of those people there.
I totally agree with you.
So what's some specific moments that you've had, and I don't mean in the way that, your grief has gone to where you don't grieve anymore, because I think we've talked enough in our family to know that it's not something that ever goes away. You don't get over it. You don't say, now I'm not grieving anymore, because that's just not reality. And different people have different griefs, but especially with the loss of a child or the loss of a sibling, especially at such a young age, what are some things that have helped you get to the next the next step and just try to cope with some of the stuff you've had to go through?
I'd say a lot is just support, communication with my friends, my family members, all the people in my circle, inner circle, outer circle, just talking when I'm ready to talk and listening when I need to listen. But I've leaned on a lot of people for support, and that's kind of what gets me through.
Sure. So kind of going through when you actually went through the loss of Ryan, was there anybody that kind of, stepped up in a way that you were like, man, I'm really glad they knew what to do, or they were at least somebody I could talk to because they could relate a little bit, anybody that you had that, really, really stepped up?
I'm sure there's quite a few, but Nana.
Yeah. Yeah.
She really stepped up. We're always super close. She was always on it. Not a day went by that there wasn't a good morning or a good night or a how are you throughout my whole life. But there was double good mornings and double good nights and double checking in.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty tough one to talk about because, Nana, which is what you call my mom, she passed away this past January. And through all the craziness of our family journeys and losing Ryan and everything, she was always there no matter what was going on. And the blood drive that we do in Ryan's memory was one of the biggest ever this year. But I had not just family members, but I had friends. And I even had one friend in particular, Tracy, came over to me and she was talking. And, she's kind of scattered all over the place because that's how she is. And she goes, "That's it." And I said, "What's it?" She's like, "That's what's missing. Your mom's not here." And she said, "I'm so sorry that I missed the funeral. We were out of town." But even somebody that's, not the organizer of the blood drive or not the one that Nana's helping with something and Nana's talking about Ryan and telling stories, it was easy for her to go, "I knew something was missing." That's what feels a little bit different. Yeah. So that's a different kind of grief to walk through. And now those are combined losses. So then you start going, I don't have my brother, my grandmother, my cousin, those kind of losses. And I think that's why it's so important to talk about it a little bit now that we've had more and more loss in our family. Is it's not just how did you guys, navigate losing Ryan when you had such young kids and everybody was going through everything, but how does this compound this? And if you leaned on, you just said it, you leaned on Nana a lot to help deal with Ryan. Well, Nana's not here. So where does that energy go, and where does that shoulder to lean on go? And that's where we've got to find a way to talk to people and to, let them know that talking helps.
Yeah, for sure.
So another thing kind of going along those lines, did you change, or did a lot of family relationships and friendships change from that time? Kind of how did that affect that part of your life?
Definitely. That day changed me forever, for sure. There's a part of me that will always be someone different without that constant in my life, and just the traumatic memory and all the things that go along with it. So I am definitely always going to be someone different. Friends and family, I got a lot closer to a lot of people through their support, through the conversations, through all of those things. And like you said, you learn who your people are. So I also found out some people who are not as supportive or
Sure.
not the people that could help me through those things.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this not everybody has the same relationship with different people that are in their lives. But I would assume, so I didn't have an older brother. I had two younger sisters growing up. So a lot of people, turn to their older brother to ask him advice. A lot of people go to their parents or their grandparents. So you were just talking about your closest grandparent. That's not here anymore. Your brother's not here anymore. So do you have people that you're able to turn to when you need that? Or does that feel like, has that ever been a void for you where you're just like, man, the people I really want to go to, I can't go to, so what do I do? Do you ever have that feeling, or have had that feeling while you're walking through this journey?
Yeah, both sides of that. I do feel that a lot. Like, my people keep leaving, my people keep disappearing. So that's a challenge, and in those steps of grief, the phases of grief that never end, that's just one more surprise step, is learning who is that person. There is no replacement, but where do I put that energy into? So I do have a couple people who I know I can lean on and I can talk to, and sometimes it's just sit on the phone to not be in a quiet room by yourself. But I definitely do have some people.
That's good. That's good. I think one of the things that we're trying to put the message out there with a lot of people that I've talked to and here is that, there are people that will listen out there. It may not be, who you think's your best friend, or could be just somebody you work with. But, opening that conversation, sometimes the best part of looking for someone to help you with your grief is you may help someone else more than you ever knew you were going to. And that's what I've learned through just a little bit of, talking about this and talking at the blood drive, is that we've got these relationships that we didn't know we were helping them. I thought they were helping us by coming to the blood drive or by honoring Ryan. But the stories that they tell, I'm like, wow, we had that big of an impact on them. I had no idea that they saw a sign that talked about the blood drive, came in to find out what was going on, and it changed a part of their life forever. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the part that I think people don't realize, is they may be looking for help for themselves, and they may actually be helping others.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool.
If you feel, it's difficult to talk, it's difficult to ask for help, everyone else feels the same way too. And like you said, when you talk to someone about what you're going through and you open up on that level, they're able to open up on that same level too. You open the door for them, and regardless of the grief, the loss, the pain, whatever that person's going through, they've maybe never been able or felt comfortable talking about it before.
Yeah. I found that a lot. So kind of moving back to the, trying to, kind of go through that journey and things that we do, talk to people, try to help other people. Since you and Ryan were so close, is there anything that, you do in particular to keep his memory alive, or to honor him in any way that you feel like is kind of that, thing that keeps y'all together?
My big thing is just to be more like him, to have the fun, to have a good time, to not take life so serious. Get out and do something crazy, do something fun. It doesn't matter what's going on next week, next month, next year. Live in the moment and enjoy every moment of it. That, and I lost my thought there.
It's okay. No problem. Yeah, I think it's, we do the blood drive, which I'm wearing this band, Give Life for Ryan. We do a blood drive in his memory, and it's been an incredible cause. It's changed so many lives, impacted so many lives. But through this journey that I've recently embarked on of just talking about it more and trying to learn, inside how to get better and better and to be there for others. We were recording some stuff one time, and Nick said, not only give life for Ryan, but live like Ryan. And that kind of hit me because I keep so much stuff inside. And so that doesn't mean, live like a 21-year-old that throws caution to the wind and does whatever he wants. But to me, it means, hey, remember to live life. I tell people all the time, it was kind of weird for parents, and I don't know if you felt that as a kid or not, but, when Ryan was 15 or 16, he would tell me, like, dude, nobody knows if we're going to be here tomorrow. He was saying things like that at like 15, 16, where most people are going, in 5 years, I'm going to do this. In 10 years, I'm going to do that. So there was like this understanding that we may not be here tomorrow of him that I'm not sure where it came from. It was so embedded in him, like, taking off to St. Louis, or the day he got his car, calling me from Ohio, so some of that stuff. And it's, even at 51, it's a huge reminder to me to, hey, man, live life. Every day that goes past, the older I get, and with grandkids and stuff, I'm just like, we got to do more. I tell Stacy that all the time. And this doesn't mean we have to go to some, we've got to travel the world and go to 10 different countries. That'd be great. But remember to enjoy what we're doing while we're here. It is so vital. And I hope what you're saying is you're taking some time to do those kind of things that you might put off, but you're doing them now.
Yeah, 100%. I think definitely trying to live for him in a way, do the things that I know he'd be doing if he was here right now, and things that maybe I was too scared to do, or maybe I was overthinking too much to do. But it didn't matter what the adventure was. He had no problem going to do it. So I've tried to start doing some of that as well.
Cool. So kind of along those lines, what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced over the last 8 years, and how have you overcame them or managed them as best as you can? So what have some of the hardest parts of 2016 till now been?
The hardest two for me are dreaming that it didn't happen, having a dream, and who knows what random dream it was, but a dream that we're doing something or we're going somewhere or we're talking about this, and to wake up to the reality is just like a shock every time. And those dreams are few and far between as the years go by, but those are always really, really difficult. And another one for me is the goods and the bads. Anything good happens in my life, I immediately just want to tell him, want to share with him. As the brother rivalry, want to compare to him. Sure. Whatever we could do to one up each other in a fun way. And then the bad times, going through really hard things, going through other losses, going through things I just need advice on, and not having him to give me that advice or to be that person to talk to, or whatever the situation is. Just the constant reminder, the good or the bad. It's really difficult to get through those things without him sometimes.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a little bit before, and one of the hardest parts for myself in that way is all the what ifs. And I've heard a lot of people that have lost children talk about that thing. One of the hardest things to do is that, Ryan is 21 forever. We'll never know 22-year-old Ryan, 30-year-old Ryan later this year. So I think the what ifs are one of the most challenging things for me and internally, and watching our your siblings get married, have babies, that kind of stuff. Always as happy as I can be for his friends, but then I always have that part of me quietly that goes, man, it's not fair. Like, I want to see what 30-year-old Ryan would be like. I want to see the fun uncle. I want to see where all he would have gone. I mean, he was 21 and he traveled to probably 5 or 6 states by himself, taking off and going to New York by himself. So I kind of wonder, would he have traveled all over? Would he have settled down? So I think the what ifs are a really hard part to get past, because they're so personal, and they're not something that you want to share with the person that's celebrating the greatest moment in their life. So I think that's what makes it really hard. Is I want to say, in front of whoever just had a baby, oh my God, I'm so incredibly happy for you. But then when I walk out of the room, my mind, as his dad, immediately goes to never get to have that experience with him. So I think those kind of things are definitely tough to, they're challenges to walk through that are extremely difficult.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I guess one of the big things would be, if you've experienced it, you've walked through it, what is some advice if you knew somebody right now that was going through the loss of a brother or a sister, and I mean, it just happened, what is the best advice that you feel like you could give them that either did help you or maybe that you wish you would have had at that time?
I'd say to speak up, to lean on whoever it is that you trust to lean on. In those moments, you feel like the burden. Everyone feels like the burden. They're getting it from someone else. They're hearing this from this person. They've already heard it from 4 different people. And sometimes you feel like talking about it wouldn't do any good. But I would just advise that you talk to someone, whether it's a therapist, a friend, a family member, anyone you feel comfortable talking to. Just talk to someone and lean on people.
Cool. I think that's great advice. And then, looking back is, in the early days of your grief being very fresh and everything have just happened when that tragedy happened, is that the advice that you would give your younger self that you think would have helped you more? Or do you feel like, for the time you got kind of what you needed, and then the journey started to over the next 8 years kind of learn what you needed?
I definitely say learn what I needed. I had no clue what I needed at the time because I don't feel like I needed anything at the time.
Mm-hmm.
At the time in that life moment, I needed him to be here.
Yeah.
So I think just over time, learning ways to cope, learning ways to grieve, that's when I've realized over the years that talking helps a lot. Sharing, just not putting yourself in a box that you're by yourself, that you're alone, that nobody gets it, that nobody cares, life has moved on, for me at least.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. Earlier you said, having that dream that it didn't happen or waking up, I still have a lot of versions of that. And I think that's something that's probably somebody who hasn't gone through that grief is hard for them to understand. I mean, I do some of the silliest things when I'm feeling good and I'm not, really down. But then, I'll walk by a picture that we have up of Ryan. I literally talk to pictures. I'll see him and be like, man, I can't believe you're not here. That kind of stuff. And, saying that out loud sounds so silly.
I talk to his ashes. It's okay.
Yeah. But when you said dreaming it didn't happen, that's what popped in my head is, maybe that's my, because it's not true denial. I think at some point, I think it's perfectly normal for a parent, because I went through it, to just believe, hey, we're going to wake up and there's no way this is reality. I mean, I used to sit in that bed when I wasn't moving for the first couple of months and just saying, there's no way this is reality. There's no way God made sense out of taking him out of my life. It just doesn't make sense. And of course, over time, we come out of denial, hopefully, and we wish that we weren't going through that and we could wake up from the dream. But I think that's really interesting, because that's what I do, is I talk to somebody that's not there, or, maybe they are somewhere, but just talking to pictures and different things. And that really made a lot of sense to me when you said that. So it's that's good for me to hear.
Yeah, I think my denial, until the first anniversary, until our first balloon release, I was still waiting for the punchline. The type of person he was, tell you anything, any joke, he always had to be center of attention in a fun way.
For sure.
And probably for that whole year at different points in time, I just kept waiting for the joke. Even on the way to the balloon release, I kept waiting to see him on the dock.
Yeah.
And I think that's when, after that first year, that denial kind of stopped for me. That's when I was able to see, it's not a dream. It's not a joke. Yeah.
This is real.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really tough. So is there anything that you wish people that are having to try to help people that are going through loss of siblings or loss of a child, is there anything that you wish they understood that, kind of like we just talked about, dreaming that it's not real, but anything that you can think of that, you wish they understood better, that you could, tell them?
I'd say in that moment, don't try to get it. Don't compare that you lost your 88-year-old grandpa last year. Don't tell me that your dog died last year. Don't tell me I have other siblings. Just be there to love and support, not to advise, not to downplay it or make it feel like it's not that bad. And I'm sure none of that's intentional. It's really hard to know how to react and how to support, but just a shoulder to cry and an ear to listen is, it goes a really long way.
Yeah. I think it's so important for people to understand, and I'm in, I'm in sales, so I have a natural ability to try to fix things. I always want, with my wife at home, I listen and somebody starts to tell me a problem and I immediately stop listening and try to figure out how I'm going to tell them how to fix that problem. And I think with grief, what people need to understand is there's no way to fix it. There's nothing that you're going to say that's going to snap that person out of the grief that they're going with, and they're going to go, God, I'm glad you said that. I hadn't thought about it that way. I hadn't thought about I have more siblings. Wow, thanks for reminding me. Now I feel better. That's never going to happen. So like you said, just being there, being a shoulder to cry on, a shoulder to lean on, a shoulder to, do whatever that they need at that time, I think is way more than coming up with a great phrase or a great thing to tell them or the right thing to say. Sometimes being quiet or even just saying, I can't imagine your pain. Is there anything I can do for you? I think those were the most poignant things that people said to me was, I can't imagine what you're going through. Is there anything I can do for you? Period. Like, question mark, done. They weren't trying to say, think about it this way. Think about it this way. Look up this Bible verse. Think about that. There's all this different advice. And it was like, guys, this is not the time that I need you to tell me how to feel. I've never felt this way before. I don't know how to make this horrible, horrible feeling in my gut go away. I'm laying here and I'm so down. I'm so upset that I can't even cry, which I don't know if you've experienced that with grief. Most of the time you think if you're sad or you're upset, you're going to be crying all the time. But after you do it so long, you just get numb and you just kind of freeze and you don't know what to do.
That's how I got the night at the hospital. Tears and tears and tears, just out of nerves, waiting to find out, and then finding out, followed by lots more tears and lots more sounds. And I think my body hit a point. I threw up, ran outside, and I threw up. And then after that, there was just no more tears. I was just in a state of shock.
Yeah. That
just staring off into the distance was just about all I could handle at that time.
Yeah, I think that's a real emotion, and it's very difficult. So just a couple more things I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind. One of them is, because we talk a lot about, finding hope and hopelessness is a big reason that we're doing this. So when you're at your darkest moment and you're having the hardest time, what do you find hope in?
Hope is a complicated word. When I'm at my darkest and when just nothing's going to be okay, I am reminded by the people in my life that I have, my friend who supports me, my siblings, who kind of feel what I'm going through in a way.
Yeah,
we kind of get it. My hope is just that I have people to lean on.
Very cool. Then last thing, I'll wrap this up with you, is I basically just wanted to ask you, if today or, 40 years from now, whatever that may be, from your perspective, and if you had a say-so in how people think and what they do, how would you like Ryan to be remembered?
I want people to remember Ryan for being fun, for living in the moment, for never backing down, never second-guessing himself. Remember him as a loving person, a caring person, and just the brood of the family. It didn't matter what family member it was or how big or small the situation was. He was always at the front of the line to fix it. We talked a lot about Ryan traveling the world or, whatever he was doing. He was always doing something, but it didn't matter if we didn't talk to him in a week and we had an event that day. He was just going to be there. He didn't miss an event. He didn't miss a birthday. He didn't miss anything. He's always really loved and supported his family.
He might have been working on Christmas Day, but he was going to show up before it was time to open presents, no matter what was going on.
Every time.
And there's something that I think you guys have in common that I'll just say real quick. And I use the phrase all the time, and I hadn't thought about it until you were talking that way. So a lot of people ask me about my kids, and I tell everyone that Jordan is unapologetically Jordan. You are who you are no matter what's going on, no matter what anybody thinks. And I definitely think Ryan was unapologetically Ryan. And I think that's some of the greatest things you could ever be, is you are who you are. You don't try to be somebody different, and you walk through that journey. And I think it's remarkable. And I'm really proud of both of you for having that trait. Proud of all my kids for different reasons, but I love the way that you guys are always who you are. It's pretty special to me.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being on here. I really appreciate it. Appreciate you opening up and taking some time to talk.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank y'all for joining us today. Thank you so much to Jordan, my son, for being here today and being willing to talk a little bit. And that's what this is about. Just opening up a little bit, letting you know that we're here if you need us. rather. And there's people out there that are always willing to listen. So please speak up if you need to talk to somebody, and we'll be here to help. See you next time.